All right, now let's continue our discussion or exercise on exercise number 3, types of connective tissue. What are connective tissues? They are everywhere in the body of the animal. It forms the interstitial of the animal. So it makes up the substance. Okay, so primarily it functions as to connect the what? The organs, the functional organs of the body makes up the substance. Like, for example, look at your hand. Of course, there are bones, there are blood vessels, there are muscles in your palm, in your hand. Now, ano pa yung iba? Okay? So, yun yung mga tissues na makikita natin dito sa exercise na to. Okay? First type of connective tissue na ating pag-uusapan is the mesenchymal connective tissue. Mesenchymal connective tissue, narinig niyo na to sa embryology, and there is a lot of mesenchymal tissue sa embryology. Almost all of the embryonic tissue is of course made up of mesenchyme. Okay, so this is an mesenchymal. This is a mesenchymal tissue. This is an embryonic tissue. Okay, tissue section. And as you can see, marami tayong nakikitang branches. Ano ba yung mga branches na yan? Those are blood vessels. So, or this tissue, ang embryo has a lot of blood vessels. Pero hindi yun yung ating primary concern or yung embryonic tissue or yung mesenchymal tissue itself. Yun yung mga narito sa spaces. Now, this is in scanner. Let's look at it in LPO. So ngayon medyo mas na-appreciate na natin ang itsura ng mga mesenchymal tissue. So, mesenchymal tissue, this connective tissues has cells, fibers, and fluid. So, kung makikita nyo, anong napapansin natin sa mga cells? Ang dami, di ba? There are a lot of cells. Now, tingnan natin yung HPO niya. So, those are the mesenchymal tissue. And as you can see, the cells are big. They have large nucleus. So they are undergoing a lot of mitotic division as they continue to grow. Some of them, they are actually determined cells, okay? Pero hindi pa siya fully differentiated. That's why, kung makikita natin, halos pare-parehas ang kanilang itsura. Okay? Now, these cells will further differentiate into functional organs. Okay? Now, look at its spaces. May nakikita ba tayong fibers? Yun, may fiber doon, but very, very minimal. Okay? Yung intercellular substances natin nakikita, ang onte. Okay? So, primarily nakikita natin sa kanya ay mga cells. Okay? Now, let's move on to another type of connective tissue, a mucoid connective tissue. Now, a mucoid connective tissue is again found in an embryo. Pero, hindi siya sa mismo embryo itself. Part lamang siya. Actually, fetus. So, makikita siya dito sa umbilical cord. This is the umbilical cord. Tingnan lamang natin yung margins niya. Okay? So, that is the umbilical cord. Okay? The umbilical cord has 3 large blood vessels, the umbilical arteries, and the umbilical veins, and the umbilical. Okay? So, yan yung malaking structures na may lumen sa gitna. Now, asan yung mucoid tissue? Etong interstitium ang mucoid tissue. Now, let's look further. very faint na yung ating structures na makikita. Dito tayo sa may large population of cells. Now, kung ikukumpara natin, punta tayo sa HPO. Now, if we are to compare it with the embryonic connective or the mesenchymal connective tissue, less na yung cells na nakikita natin dito. Mas kakunti na ang cells, hindi na sila dikit-dikit. And predominant cells na nakikita natin ay mga fibroblast cells. Okay? So this fibroblast cells ay yung may elongated nucleus and cytoplasm, such as them. Okay? There are some mesenchymal cells, pero kakaunti na. Mesenchymal cells is yung mga circular ang nuclei at cytoplasm. So dito sa section na to, majority na lang ng ating nakikita ay mga fibroblast cells. Now, if you would see this under your microscope, mas ma-appreciate nyo na meron na din tayo nakikitang fibers, development ng fibers along with the connection of these cells. Okay? In between cells, may mga fibers na nade-develop. Okay? So that is the mucoid connective tissue. In between those fibers, may amorphous ground substance primarily made up of mucin. Kaya nga, di ba, na-discuss din natin sa glands, ang mucus hindi siya nag-stain. So this type of tissue would appear light. Okay? So kaya siya halos clear na ating na-observe sa ating microscopes. Okay? So that is the mucus or mucoid connective tissue. Now, let's move on to the loose or argular connective tissue. As the name suggests, diba? Loose. It is loose. Loose connective tissue. So, anong itsura niya? Anong arrangement niya? It is loose. It is loose. Okay? So, ang makikita na lamang natin dyan ay mga fibroblast cells. There are wala na tayong mesenchymal cells as it is already or can be seen in a functional organ. Okay? So that is may malaking artifact, hindi na-focus, hindi na pantay-pantay yung tissue. Okay. Mag-focus tayo ng nasa gitna. Dito na lang tayo sa low power objective. Alright. So, tingnan natin yung tissue na nasa image. As you can see, there are a lot of fibers na makikita natin. These are collagenous fibers. Of course, collagenous fibers malamang nanggaling sila sa types ng cell. That is the fibroblast cells. So, these are the fibroblast cells. May makikita pa tayong nuclei kung ating ilalagay pa sila sa HPO. However, this slide parang masyadong makapal, kulot-kulot na yung tissue kaya kapag nalagay natin siya sa HPO, hindi natin ma-focus ng maayos. Parang umaalon, diba? Pero mapapansin pa natin yung mga some cells. May mga nucleus pa tayo nakikita. Okay? One good example of loose areolar connective tissue kung saan pa siya makikita ay sa lamina propria. Lamina propria, this is the spaces in between the villi. Diba? Kung merong mga villi, sulat pala natin dito. Sorry. Nawala ang notepad ko. Yan. Lamina propria. Okay? So that is the tissue na nandoon sa gitna ng mga villi. If this is a villi, then meron siyang columnar, epithelia, yung nasa gitna. So that is the lamina propria. Ganyan din ang itsura. There will be some tissues na may mapapakita ko sa inyo mamaya na ganun din ang itsura. Meron silang loose connective tissue. Now, punta tayo sa hindi loose. Yung dito muna tayo sa hindi loose na tissue, yung merong arrangement such as the dense white fibrous connective tissue. Diba sa anatomy lagi ko itong nababanggit, yung dense white fibrous connective tissue, DWFCT. Okay? DWFCT or dense white fibrous connective tissue. Now, this section is longitudinal section. This is a tendon. So, yung section niya, yung pagka-section niya is parallel to the direction of its fibers. Bakit? Para makita niyo yung kanyang arrangement. So, this is a dense white fibrous connective tissue regular. Okay? Okay? Now, as you can see here, para siyang layers ng cell. Layers ng fibers. Okay? Para siyang tela. Now, dahil siya ay naputol na sa kanyang attachment, kaya nagde-delaminate, kaya hindi na siya tuwid. In living organs, tuwid na tuwid yan, lalo na kapag undertone yung muscles, di ba? Muscles will always be has tone, meron siyang muscle tone, so lagi siyang slightly contracted. So, tuwid na tuwid yung mga tendons niya. Tingnan natin siya under HPO. So, majority na ng ating nakikita ay mga fibers. So, all of them are collagenous fibers. May nakikita pa tayong fibroblasts among them, syempre, for repair. Okay? So, that is a dense white fibrous connective tissue. Okay? Now, let's compare that to a DWFCT, which is irregular. An irregular dense white fibrous connective tissue. So this is the palm of a hand. Hanapin natin yung kanyang superficial layer. This is the superficial layer of the palm. Okay? Mga uling tissue yan. Epithelia, di ba? Siya ay isang stratified squamous epithelium. Directly beneath it, this layer, that is a loose connective tissue. Okay? Yan yung mga areolar connective tissue. Tingnan natin in LPO. Itsura niya. So again, those are dense loose connective tissue. Asan do ang white, dense white connective tissue regular. Dito. Yan. If you can remember the color of the DWFCT regular, so it is pale brown or light brown in color kasi it's primarily made up of fibers. So, yan naman yung DWFCT irregular. So, wala tayong nakikitang direction ng fibers. Those are irregular DWFCT. Okay? Again, they would stain light kasi it is made up of collagen, hindi din na siya nag-stain. Okay, again, may nakikita tayong mga fibroblasts dyan sa palmar skin. Okay, again, that is dense white fibrous connective tissue, irregular. Now, let's move on to the reticular. Oh, sorry. Nalimutan ko ang elastic. Elastic connective tissue. We have the elastic connective tissue. So, ang elastic connective tissue is made up of elastic fibers that would form angular structures such as that. Okay, so that is an elastic connective tissue. Now, this is under LPO, punta tayo HPO. All right. Look at the fibers, the direction of fibers. Again, it is irregular pero mas sharp yung kanyang mga edges. Okay, now, this elastic tissue, it is interspersed with cartilage, elastic cartilage. Yan ang mga cartilaginous cells. In between them, such as these, those are elastic connective tissue. Okay? So, kaya nga napapansin pa natin yung kanyang direction ng fibers. Okay? Again, kanto-kanto siya. Unlike yung irregular DWFCT, random. Ito, kanto-kanto ang nagiging itsura ng isang elastic connective tissue. Let's move on to the reticular connective tissue. Now, reticular connective tissue is a special tissue as it cannot be stained by by H&E. It can only be stained by passive acid shift, satin, or silver stain. Kagaya nitong section na nasa harap natin or nasa inyong screen, that is a silver stain of a reticular tissue. It usually makes up the framework of a lymphoid organ such as lymph nodes. Tingnan natin tong fiber network na yan. So those are reticular fibers. Tingnan natin siya under HPO. Okay, so again, it is made up of reticular fibers. They would appear, of course, as black strands, which would form a network. So those are the reticular fibers. When you are drawing these types of tissue, So you can always move your fine adjustment knob. Kung mapapansin nyo, we are under HPO. Lilinaw siya dito sa baba. Then malabo pa sa taas. When you continue it, lumilinaw dito sa taas. Ibig sabihin nun, hindi na flat yung tissue. So, uneven yung pagkaka-mount sa kanya or may kulot na kaya nagkakaganon. So, when you are drawing, when you are observing these slides, dapat lagi i-move nyo ang inyong fine adjustment mo para ma-appreciate nyo yung collection yung buong tissue itself. Okay? Okay? Now, let's move on to the last connective tissue, the adipose connective tissue. Adipose connective tissue, other words, taba. Again, this is a lightly staining connective tissue. Yang mga yan. So, yung build-up ng cells na yan, those are the adipose connective tissue. It contains fat. It has a large fat vacuole inside its cell. Usually, yung nucleus ay napapalagay na sa gilid. Tingnan natin siya under HPO. Alright. So, this, bumabalik siya. Look at this cell. Okay, this is a singular cell, an adipose cell. So, yun na lamang ang kanyang nucleus and yung lahat or almost all of its cytoplasm is made up of fat vacuole. And again, fat, hindi siya nag-stain. Malabo siya. Okay? So, wala siyang itutukap na stain, kaya it's just clear. Okay? Kapag nakita natin ang ganyang itsura, yung butas-butas, then may nucleus sa gilid, that is again, an adipose tissue. There are two types of adipose tissue. White adipose tissue, which is common. Yan yung ating nakikita. That is a white adipose tissue, and brown adipose tissue. Yung brown adipose tissue, wala tayong sections nun. Usually, that is seen in hibernating animals. Okay, so these are the connective tissues. Okay, now let's get to work. See ya.